Next in our lineup to completing our portfolio is to design or insert content and design our content for the career exploration page. Here on our content guidelines page and underneath career exploration, on my tutorial you'll see that these numbers are out of order, and there's three lists here. We're going to combine all these into one tutorial like we've done with some of the previous ones. Alright, so let's move over to Dreamweaver, and before we start and before you start your career exploration page, it's probably a good idea that you collect some photos like we did for the education research page to go along with your text and your content for this page. That way it looks a little more dynamic and cooler rather than just all text on your page. Okay, so I'm going to open up my career exploration page, my files menu, and I'm going to switch over to the code view, and then again I'm going to get rid of this paragraph spacing that we placed in there in an earlier tutorial. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my career research document. So I'm going to tab over to a Word document that I already have opened, and this is my career explorer document. If you remember right, for this year we did a reflection piece that I'm highlighting here on my document, and then below that we had you go to the occupational handbook and look up some specific things about the career option that you're looking for. You'll notice that I just have some lorem ipsum filler text in here to kind of fill out what we're doing. So I'm going to start with just the first two paragraphs, and then I'll move into the bottom section. We're going to put the reflection piece first in our Career Explorer. So I'm going to grab all that and Command C, Control C, and then tab over to Dreamweaver. And then in my content area, I'm going to go ahead and Command V, Control V that. And then, like the previous tutorial, I'm going to highlight all this text and then make sure that I get it tabbed over where I need it to be. Actually, the start of my first paragraph is already tabbed over, so I'm going to go to that second paragraph and tab that over a couple times. Okay. And then I'm going to wrap each of these paragraphs, or I'm going to wrap each of these paragraphs in a paragraph tag. Oops. Control T or Command T, and then wrap that. Sorry, I forgot the Command T there. Looks like my little paragraph tag there got moved, so I just want to put that at the end of the text. And I like to use white space to separate paragraphs, so it makes it easier to see. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this as well, Command T, and then paragraph. Now I don't have a title set up at the beginning of this, and I think that's probably a good thing to do. So I'm going to hit the Enter Return key, and I'm going to use an H1 tag for this, and I'm going to write something like, some really great and specific. Having trouble typing. Some really great and specific title to my career. Okay. So next I'm going to put my cursor at the end of that second paragraph and drop down a couple of lines, and then I'm going to tab over to my Word document. And then I'm going to grab all of that text from that research from the occupational handbook that I have. Most of it's just paragraphs, and at the bottom where we had similar occupations, I think I put that in there as bullet points. So it's a little bit, breaks it up a little bit. So Control C, Command C, and then tab over to Dreamweaver, and then paste all those in there. Again, I want to make sure I get my tab, and so everything looks lined up properly where it should go. And you notice the bullet points did come in. I'll need to delete those. So tab over a couple times so that they line up with the rest of my text. And then I'm going to start down here at the bottom and delete out those bullet points, just so I remember to do that. I'll come back later and put those in an unordered list to make that fit. Okay, so next I'm going to go through and make sure that I put some tags around these subheadings. I could use an H2 tag, or I can use an H3 tag, depending on what you feel is appropriate for this section. I'm going to go ahead and use an H2 tag. So I'm going to use H2s around each of these subheadings. I like to do just the subheadings first, just kind of go down and do the same tags for each one, just because it's kind of easy, and my brain works that way, just so I know like how things are organized throughout the rest of the page. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back up, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the wrap tag shortcut. So I'm going to do that around each of the paragraphs underneath, so Command or Control T, and do that for all my paragraphs. What's cool about this page is we've pretty much, and it looks like I ended up with a tag below there. We've pretty much done all the styling for our whole portfolio, and so a lot of this we won't have to do a ton in terms of styling this page. We'll need to add some images and things like that, but for the most part we've styled this page already, because we've styled all the other pages. The styling for our paragraph tags and our heading tags and all that kind of stuff already done for us. So that's kind of the nice thing about doing some of those other pages first, like the resume and the home page, is that by the time we get to these pages, we're pretty much dialed in terms of that styling, and so we don't have to do a ton of just putting the content in there. Down here, similar occupations. This should be an unordered list, so I'm going to highlight that whole thing and then Command T U L or Control T for you Windows users. And then I'm going to tab those list items in, and then tab my unordered list in, and then each one of these gets a LI tag. So Control T, Command T, each one of those list items. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at where we're at here. We got a lot of text filling in, and I have some images to go along with this. I only have a couple. I probably should find more for the amount of text that I've got going on with this piece, but for now I'm only going to just put in two. So I'm going to drop back over to code, and I'm just going to put them in a couple of different places to space them out. So I'm going to put the let's do it around that second paragraph, do a couple of spaces, and then we're going to do image source img src, and then browse for that and go to my images folder in my portfolio folder. I made a career exploration folder to house all of my career images, just like I did for my education pictures. I think I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Boeing building. This one, for the one that I've previously done, was for engineering for Boeing. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, and I'm going to type in an Alt key for that, and we're going to do Boeing. And then I'm going to go ahead and align my picture to the right, and so to do that I'm going to use that float class right that we've done before. So I'm going to type in class and then float right, and then right caret. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I think I'm going to probably put it somewhere around, maybe like around work environment. Let me, if I remember right, I have one of the pictures is of the inside, so perhaps I'll put it in between. We'll see where this turns out. So I have work environment. I'm going to put it in between work environment and how to become one. So left caret img src for image source, enter return, and then Boeing manufacturing, and then spacebar alt, and then Boeing man. I'm just going to abbreviate there, and then spacebar again, and then I'm also going to do the same alignment. So I'm going to type in class, and then we're going to float it to the right, and then don't forget that right caret. So let's see how it looks here. I think that the Boeing picture there works really nice. and scroll down, and underneath work environment, pay, I think the spacing is pretty well dialed in there. I could probably move it up just a little bit, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just leave it right where it is. Okay, so I'm going to keep scrolling down here, except oh, my properties inspector got undocked. Dock that back in there. There we go. Okay, so we have similar occupations down there in the bottom. Okay, so last but not least, and for this page we have a, sorry about that, we have a your expert letter to go in at the bottom of your piece, and we're going to do it the same way as we did the Creator Foundation essay. We're going to create a div for it, and we're going to insert it down there at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to pop up over to my code and jump back into my portfolio main CSS, and I'm going to scroll down to my content area, and where I had Creator Foundation essay, I'm going to create a new style for our expert letter. So I'm going to hit the enter return key a couple of times, and I'm going to enter a CSS comment, and I'm going to do the same thing what I did there before. Type in my couple of dashes there, and then put in my middle, go put my cursor in the middle, and we're going to type in expert letter styles. Okay, and I'm going to put my cursor at the end there, and then hit the enter return key. And so I'm going to make a new div ID, and we're going to call this expert letter. And the reason why we're going to do this is so that it actually looks like a letter in our little page, and it's going to have a border around it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm essentially going to do the same style as I did with the foundation essay div, but I'm going to do just a plain black border instead of that green border. So we're going to do margin 10 pixels auto again, and a width of the same 880 pixels, so that it's, you know, a little bit narrower than our page there, and then a border, and then we're going to go ahead and do a 2 pixel instead of a 3 pixel solid number 000 for black, and then end that statement with the semicolon, then enter return, and then alright, curly brace. Okay, so back to my source code over here, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and underneath my similar occupations I'm going to place my cursor and tab over there, so my cursor is about the same level there as or same tabbed over level as the similar occupations, and left caret, and then type in div ID, and then expert letter. Okay, and then enter return, and then left caret / to close that div out. Okay, and then I'm going to place my cursor there in the middle, and then I'm going to tab inside so that I know that this content is going inside this nested div tag. Then I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Word document and find my expert letter, which I have behind there. So I'm going to close this one out. And again, I have a lot of ipsum lorem text, but I've formatted it similarly to what your expert letter should look like. So I'm just going to grab everything that I need to grab, and then Control C or Command C, and then pop back over to Dreamweaver, and then Control V or Command V in there, and then I'm going to grab all that text again that didn't get indented where I want it to, and then use my indent key over so it indents in the same line. Next, I need to add paragraphs to each one of these, and break tags to each one of these lines. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to put a paragraph tag on my address. So paragraph, and then after each one of these lines in my address, I'm going to use a break tag so that I don't have the spacing that, just like we did on your resume, so I don't have the spacing after each one of these, so that each one of these appears to be single spaced. And then at the very end, make sure that you put in the closing paragraph tag. So you have this, the opening paragraph tag, and then after each line you have the break tags, and then closing paragraph tag. Okay, and then around the date, we're going to do paragraph, and then close that out. And then the address of the person you're sending this to, you're going to put a paragraph tag in there. Now, if it's a company address for this person, I think you go ahead and leave it in there. Obviously, for your address, please use the school's address, which is the 655 North 3rd Street. Don't use your personal address and don't use your personal phone number. You can use the school's phone number, which I'll go ahead and type it right here, which is 494 6261, and that's the BIS phone number to get to there. So don't use any of your personal information. And then for the person that obviously for this letter to, if you feel more comfortable just deleting out their address information, you can go ahead and do that. If it's a big company like say Google, Microsoft, or Apple, or whatever it might be, and it's just their business address, then I think that would be okay. But I would always err on the side of caution and protecting people's personal information. So if you feel more comfortable by eliminating their address information and all that kind of stuff, please feel free to do so. I'm going to type in a break class here at the end of the name, and same thing with the above address. Oops, this one needs a wrong line, that's what it was. Break class there in the second line, and then closing paragraph tag at the end. And so then now I just need to go through each one of these lines and add a paragraph tag. Okay, oops, did that the wrong way. Easy to do. Okay, so here, first paragraph, I'm going to use the Control-T, Command-T wrap tag. Okay, and I'm just going to go through in all my paragraphs and do the same thing. Control-T, paragraph. Now for the my paragraph tag got there. Put it there. There we go. Okay. So for your your ending your salutation, sincerely gets its own paragraph tag. So I'm going to Control-T that and then paragraph. And so does your name, but to create the spaces underneath, we're going to need to add, so Control-T and then put the paragraph tag. We're going to need to add some spaces in between here to give it that letter feel. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in a paragraph tag and then left caret / close it, and then we're going to type in the ampersand and then N, and then we're going to select that one where it says NBSP, which stands for space. Okay, oops. And so all I want to do is just put a few of these. So I'm just going to highlight that line of code and hit Control-C or Command-C, and then hit the Enter return key, Command-C or Command-V or Control-V, and then I'm just going to do a few spaces there. So I'm going to switch over to live view and just to see how this looks here. So it does go on the inside a little bit, looks like a letter, and then I do have a space there. Perhaps that's one too many spaces because of our padding and values that we've added to that paragraph tag. So I'm going to pop back over to code view and then maybe just get rid of one space and then see how that looks. That's better. Okay. Alright, that's satisfactory for me. For you, I would definitely add more images. I only had 2. I think you could add a couple more to make it look nice. Under the pay section or the job outlook section, if you have a graph or a pie chart or something like that to show, like percentages and numbers, those things always look really nice. But as far as we're concerned, this is we're finished with the career exploration page, and we have one more page to insert content and style for, and that's the showcase.